Space is confusing and uncertain, right? So what if, and bear with me, we were to combine space with something completely random like, I don't know, the future? What would we get? Well, a lot, I'm sure, but we'll just be focusing on a single piece of Japanese animated media called Planetes. Planetes? Whatever. You might be asking, but what is Planet this show about? So dear viewer, let me tell you. Planetes is an anime in the hard sci-fi genre, which basically means that it tries to abide by the laws of nature as we know them. You can think of a Space Odyssey or Interstellar, whereas normal or soft sci-fi can be more imaginative, so think Star Wars or Star Trek. Anyways, the story of Planetes is occurring 51 years in the future. The year is 2075, and space has become way more normalized. A lot of people now work as astronauts, ship captains, space engineers, and so on and so forth. Amongst these many new jobs are space debris collectors. Debris in space has been snowballing for quite a while, and it wasn't until an accident in 2071 involving orbiting space debris where it finally started getting recognized as a concerning issue. This is where our main cast comes in. A group of 7 space debris collectors who are simply trying to find their way in life. Among the people in this group are the lolcows, who are either just there to do paperwork or mostly just pathetic and useless. The rest of the group is what you would expect an astronaut to actually be like. Brave, strong, capable, inspiring, and morally stubborn. It might seem like their lives are pretty great or even perfect or whatever, but everyone goes through their own issues, no matter how vocal they are about it and no matter how much they show it. And this group is no exception. Tough times are, well, tough, but even if you already are a really strong person, having family or friends to stand behind you and help you through it will always make it more bearable. And fighting through the battles will always make you a stronger or even a better person. Like, even the pathetic ones struggled, fought, did something and grew because of it. They're still really pathetic and pitiful, do not get me wrong, but growth, no matter how small it is noteworthy. Planetes also points out other issues, including some that are quite worrying for the future. One being the space debris, obviously, but also more pressing issues like space terrorism and capitalism. I don't want to absolutely bore you to death with me talking about economics, so I just won't. But no matter how rich a country is, no matter how well tested a spaceship is, mistakes are bound to happen. And sometimes those mistakes can happen whilst on tours, expeditions, or whilst just orbiting around the Earth. But what happens to the debris from those spaceships then? Well, some of the debris might very well start orbiting around Earth, and with that, it'll potentially collide and hit other spacecrafts or even other pieces of debris, and then it'll potentially make even more debris from the collision, and so on and so on. Luckily, in real life, our ventures into space are still quite few and far between, so we don't have to worry much about any of this just yet. Anyways, let's talk about sound real quick. So sound is carried by atoms and molecules, which, by the way, there are none of in the vacuum of space. Obvious stuff, yeah. But this eerie and natural soundlessness of space, coupled with only the static and almost robotic sounding breathing of our main characters, whilst they're out in space of course, makes every single space scene just that much more intense. And it certainly doesn't help that they removed all the music in these space scenes. It's kinda like in horror movies when the music and sound effects amps up, comes to the climax, before abruptly stopping. And then the jumpscare comes.
It said Dalton. I can still hear that voice.
The funeral is about to begin, sir.
But here we're always at that phase where there's next to no sound, and because of that we have no idea when to actually expect that jumpscare that we're waiting for. But no media is without its own issues, and Planetes is certainly no exception. An issue I've heard go around is that the characters are a bit too immature at times, and I can definitely see what they mean by that. The entire main cast of characters at some point disobeyed the orders that are directly given to them by the top dog or something, and mostly face little to no consequence because at the end of the episode they end up saving the day, space station, the city, etc, etc. Of course they still face their own fair share of issues that don't just go away immediately, which then forces character growth and development. And the growth the main cast goes through really stands out to me for some reason, when though it might not actually be as special and unique as I perceive it to be, but I can acknowledge that. Also, fuck the subtitles, they get really annoying at times. No further comment. Finding the place you can call your home isn't necessarily just where you live. A home is a place where you feel safe. A place where you feel at ease, comfortable and understood. I think a home is one of those things that just clicks, and then you know for sure. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, it could just be a small apartment, or you can even feel at home when you're just out and about with your best friends. You know, like, home is where you make it. You don't have to take what I'm about to say literally or at face value, but just remember this. It's better to live in a home than a house. But let me ask, a home may be somewhere you feel safe and comfortable, but is a home somewhere you feel happy and content? And where does our hearts truly lie? Like, is it driven by love and being able to be content with what you already have? Or is it driven by the strive to be greater and dream big? Is it different from person to person? And does it depend on how we were raised or who we truly are? And we're already here, so I might as well ask this. Is taking the life of someone evil justified? What if this evil person's plans fell through and nothing came out of what they intended? What if they are fundamentally an evil person, but never explicitly did anything illegal? Would them being evil just be in their nature then? Why and how are people evil? Is it because they just want more and more and more? Does that mean that acting out of self-interest equates to being evil? Selfishness is a sin after all, and some people would argue that it's the root of all evil. But humans are selfish by nature, so does that mean that we are all evil by nature as well? Is scientific progress worth more than human lives? If so, to what extent? Around 9 million people die each year just from something as resolvable as starvation. Is it to that extent? An average of 22,000 people die each year because of terrorism. That's around 2.4% of the amount of people that died from starvation. Yet, acts of terrorism and the deaths associated with it tend to get way more media coverage and they seem to have way more importance than those who die from starvation. Are the people who die from terrorism, or the people who live in first world countries' lives, more important or valuable than the people who die from starvation, or those who live in third world countries' lives are? I don't know. Planetis indirectly points out all these questions, but obviously without it spiraling as much as I did whilst making this. And whilst there are inherently no wrong or correct answers, I wonder if that doesn't just make the questions more interesting. I mean, I know I won't think of them much because I'm dumb I'm as dumb as they get, you know? So I'll leave the pondering to you. And thank you so much for watching. And to all my many fans out there, if it sounded different, that's because I'm testing and using a new mic.